On the 8th of February 1942, the Japanese had landed on the northwest of Singapore and within 6 days had made it to the city. There was a lack of defences on the island, and the Australian soldiers were wary after already losing 700 men in Malaya. There was only one trained battalion from Australia, and the rest of the reinforcements were untrained and not ready for war. The Japanese had prepared for the invasion with heavy bombardment against the thinning defence. The Australian, British, and Indian troops tried to hold back the Japanese, but their depleted battalions were not enough. Evacuations from Singapore had begun in late January and continued until the last moment. By the 14th of February, the Japanese had captured Singapore's reservoirs and pumping stations, and on the 15th of February, the British surrendered to the Japanese.
In the fall of Singapore, the Japanese used many different tactics and strategies in order to capture Singapore. Through the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which gave the Japanese full power on the naval side of attacking, the Japanese captured Singapore in 70 days due to the strategy called Kiramono Sakusen, which is the driving charge, where Yamashita's tanks and jungle warfare expertise would ensure victory. Churchill stated that the loss of Singapore was a grievous and shameful blow, the worst disaster and largest capitulation in British history. The Japanese captured Singapore due to the attacking and strategies that had never been seen before. The Japanese had a significantly smaller army compared to the troops stationed in Singapore.
The British and Allied forces were not prepared for Japanese attacks and underestimated their superior enemy, as they were confident that no army would be able to defeat them in Singapore, which was their fortress. This feeling of superiority that the Allied forces had ultimately led to their downfall. This unreadiness for war showed up when the Japanese surprised Bennett's forces when they used both the inland and coastal roads and were also prepared to fight at night. The Allied forces were also expecting the Japanese to attack through the jungle, but instead were met by a Japanese force who used a strategy called the Kiramono Sakusen, which was a driving charge. Winston Churchill furthermore showed how the British and Allied forces had underestimated the Japanese when he stated in 1941 that the Japanese would fold up like the Italians.
The fall of Singapore had a massive effect on Australia and its behaviour. Realising that England, previously seen as Australia's strength, no longer had any influence in the Pacific theatre, the country expected an invasion from Japan. In response to the new threat to the home front, Australia was forced to withdraw their troops from North Africa, and all returned but the 9th Division. At the same time, Australia was turning to the USA for help. It was also in the USA's interest for Australia to stand against the Japanese. If Australia fell, the Japanese would have a strong base to launch an attack on the US mainland. If, on the home front, Australians were told that they had to dedicate themselves 100% to the war effort.